There we go. I'm going to make sure that the volume is set to a point where you guys are not going to get your eardrums blown out. Excellent. All right. So, and it says I'm live. So, let's give me a shout if you can hear me. Good morning. Hi, Christine and MJ. So happy that you have a cat joining you today. And Ingrid, thank you so much for being here. So excited. Hi, Sally and Katie. Hi, Elizabeth and Priscilla. Yeah, I had to unmute. Just wanted to make sure that the picture was working and then realized I started talking before volume. Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. Happy brunch time. Hi, Pat. Fantastic. I am going to go through some housekeeping kind of stuff while we have folks join us and come in and say hi. Hey, Jacqueline. Good morning. As a reminder for folks who are maybe just stumbling upon the live and have no clue what we're about ready to do, this morning for my Sunday brunch, we're going to be walking through the basics, the foundations of foundation paper piecing, and kind of some hints and tricks and tips that I've learned along my path of FPP. I will show you, there's, Ingrid is awesome as heck and already posted in the chat the link to the block that we're working on. It is a free, just a block image of a square and a square, and I've printed it off 3 times because I'm gonna, if there are questions, I might be able to walk through a couple of scenarios. I also have some different fabric choices that I wanted to showcase in a couple of different ways. So I'll be able to do that with those 3 sizes. Earlier, Christine had asked, hi everybody, good morning. If the size of the block that you print off, if that matters. For what we're doing this morning, does not matter at all. As long as it's a size that the whole block printed off on a piece of paper and you're comfortable with that piece of paper and that size of a block, that's perfect, because this isn't working into a larger pattern where we might be fitting in other blocks where it absolutely matters of, you know, what sizes you're putting together. For this, the size that your printer allowed you to print it off at is the perfect size. It's not going to hurt anything. If your printer allowed you to print it off super big, then you've got like a trivet size. If it only allowed you to print it out somewhat large, maybe you just have a tiny mug rug for just one mug and no cookie. It's okay. It'll be perfectly fine for what we're doing this morning. Oh, Sally, I'm sorry, it's tough. I'm telling you, housing, finding affordable places and safe places is not anything I'd want to be doing right now. Good morning. Hi, Mary. Oh, I appreciate that you'll be rewatching it. Good morning, Rita. Beverly, Shelly. If I missed anybody, I'm so sorry. I'm trying to go back through now. Hi, Philippa. All right. So, if you haven't already, please go ahead and print off that block in whatever size works best for you and your printer. And then I'll go ahead and jump in and start talking about, as a very beginner FPPer, the things that, you know, you'll want to make sure you have on hand. And the things that just don't really, they're not really going to matter that much until you're like crazy deep into FPP. And so I'm going to switch camera views and I'm going to do a little bit of overhead to show off some some fancy tools that you absolutely do not need, but will help me in showing off today. And then, other bits and bobs. So let's do that. So here we go. Okay. First and foremost, you will notice a light board. This light board is in absolutely no way a requirement for FPPing. You can use a window. As I sit here on my brunches, or when I've done FPP with like Stephanie on her channel, I just use a light source or the window. I rarely do I use a light board. Today I'm using the light board because I want to show how to kind of fussy cut directional fabric. So I'm using it for demonstration purposes today. I never have this light board out. I took a class and actually used it when I started FPP, and I was learning how to place directional fabric. I did use it then, but that's more because, as I've said many times, I'm a gadget gal, and I will buy all the things that I hear could be cool. But since then, in 2 years, I've used this maybe 3 times, and that one time was the class that I was in where she recommended a light board, and I already had it, so I was like, cool. So yeah, light board, not at all required. A glue stick and or pins are a couple of the ways I'll show you to make sure section 1, your first piece of fabric, stays stable until you're more comfortable with holding the fabric in place. The larger the fabrics are, the more that they'll move around. Good morning, everybody. Okay, I wanted to check. So the larger, like this section 1, the larger this is as compared to the little one that I have printed out, can be more difficult to hold in place when you're putting piece 2 up against it. It can be more difficult to not have it shift as you begin stitching. So when you start off, you might want to use your sew line glue pen, a pin, a basting stitch, totally cool. For just starting out, there is no reason to not just use your Aurifil, regular 50 weight Aurifil, or whatever your thread of choice is. If you use Wonderfil or Gutermann or Coates and Clark, is that, I can't remember, but just your standard piecing thread is absolutely perfect. Don't go spending money and buying new stuff if FPP isn't the thing that you're doing all the time. There's no reason for it. You are good to go with just your standard stuff. If you begin doing this more often, you will possibly and potentially find that you enjoy 80 weight thread more. It's thinner, it creates less over time, especially as you're doing things that have smaller and smaller pieces. I don't know if you've seen the collaborations with Juicy Juice and Allison Glass, where Juicy Juice is entirely in love with really, really tiny piecing. Because I'm preaching now about what we're talking about. I don't know if you've seen those are so tiny, and all of the added bulk, even if it's imperceivable in other piecing, the weight of the thread does start to impact as you're piling on all of those tiny, tiny, tiny little pieces. For what we're doing today, for what I would say most beginners kind of do for a long time, I did certainly, the size of the thread isn't going to be as impactful for the majority of beginner patterns. Do you buy gadgets twice? Nice. Hi, Del Marie. Yes, Yes, 80 weight. And I did dive into that because I did start doing the Juicy Juice and Allison Glass. And, you know, Juicy Juice is kind of, and he recommended it, so I was like, I will absolutely buy that, sir. The seams build up so fast, and just anything that's adding any kind of extra, taking up extra space means something in those tiny, tiny pieces. Again, for today, not that big a deal. Rulers. So I will show how to use, I'll use the add a quarter. I won't use the add a eighth. I talked a little bit yesterday with some folks, about how I use the add a eighth. For those really small ones, that the really tiny little edges that like Juicy Juice does, I do like using the add a eighth because there's so little space in between each seam that it all ends up flat because it's all the same thickness as you go. When I'm using or I'm doing rather my legit kits, like the sail away that I'm still working on. I didn't finish it last night. I started making mistakes and started getting angry, and I was like, well, it's time to go to bed. So so no, it is not finished. Fingers crossed for today, because I'm in a much better mood now. Yesterday was a long sew day, y'all. I was up at 7:30 to be ready to go for Steven's birthday bash. Then one of the folks that I will be recommending for learning FPP and researching other ways to do FPP, the vet Renee, who has a group called Piecing It Real. We had a virtual class, virtual retreat yesterday. So I went right from Steven's birthday to that, and then went right from that to our cotton cuts. For clue 6. So it was a long day, and I tried to stay up to finish the sail away, and I was like, no, it's not happening. It's so not happening. I have actually not bought Aurifil at 80 weight. When I bought the 80 weight, I went with Wonderfil because Sir Juicy said so. So that's what I went and got. I actually haven't tried Aurifil at 80 weight. I should probably do that, though. It'd be a good comparison. I haven't tried that. So sorry, went off track there. Followed the squirrel. So for the tiny things, like with Juicy Juice, I use the add eighth because it's not adding a weird ledge. For the larger things, and like for our square and a square today, I'll use add a quarter. The majority of the time, I don't even pull out the specialty rulers. I just use a regular ruler that has, that I can see. And all of our quilting rulers, almost all of our quilting rulers, you'll be able to see the 1/4 inch. And I usually just use that because I'm using this to trim the blocks at the end anyway, and I have limited space on my table, so not having a bunch of rulers running amok on my table makes me happy. It keeps it cleaner, and I know where things are, and so that's why 99% of the time I end up using just a regular ruler to trim the papers, to trim the fabric, and then clean up the papers at the end. So you don't need any specialties. Yes, Sir Juicy. So ruler, awesome. Don't need the specialty ones if you're just starting out. If you're a gadget person like me, you'll get them because you want all of the things. But I very, very rarely, in all honesty, very rarely use these. I will show them today though, so that you guys get to see how they work. And maybe it works better for you and you want to use them. So I want to be able to give you that opportunity to see. You can, so the add a quarter and the add an eighth, they are multitaskers because you can use the edge of your ruler to fold back the paper to fold in the sew line so that you know where you're lining up your fabrics. So that's always good. Or you can use, and I just use whatever, like, what are they, postcard type cards are in whatever thing I just got recently, until I've used it so much that it's warped and it's no longer a straight line. Today I will be utilizing the July 2023 Cotton Cuts Block of the Month card, because that's what I have on hand. And then, of course, some kind of cutting implement. I will often use a pair of scissors to get somewhat close to a 1/4 inch when I'm putting the fabrics together, but I'm usually using my rotary cutter to do all of the shaping and trimming and cleaning up. So rotary cutter for the win. That's the tool I'm going to use the most. And then, speaking of the rotary cutter, when you have your paper, your patterns printed, and also, as a beginner FPPer, don't run out and get any specialty kind of paper. Any paper will do. If you have like fancy resume paper, you know, the thicker kind, I would not recommend using that. That's just going to be stiff. It's going to be difficult to sew through and to rip out when you're done. Oh yeah, that thin edge for trimming, yeah, definitely don't do that. It's also far more likely that the rotary cutter will skip over how thin it is and get you. And I definitely don't want that to happen. So yeah, I would never use that thin edge of the at a 1/4. Oh, just give me nightmares. But so back to paper choices. Don't run out and get newsprint if you're just beginning. You're just your standard, regular, non-resume type, like not I don't know, like linen and all that kind of stuff. no heavy duty papers. Just your standard copy printer paper is perfect when you're just starting out. I do have a couple of reams of newsprint because I do this a lot. The newsprint isn't so much a gadget thing as it really was kind of time for me to have it, to use it, because I am comfortable with doing the FPP now. So it was like a logical next step for me. It wasn't like, oh, gotta have all the things. I actually enjoy using the newsprint now more than the regular paper. But that's down the line. Again, I'm like 2 years into this, so you don't have to do this right away. Just regular paper. And this is where it might be a little controversial. You can use paper scissors to trim your patterns out of all the pieces of paper. You absolutely can use your paper scissors. Definitely don't recommend using fabric scissors, but paper scissors you can use. Or you can do like me and just use your rotary cutter, because I change the rotary cutter's blade so often. I'm just going to turn this off. Oops, wrong way. For right now, so that it's not shining so bright behind. I change my rotary blade so often that it's not really impacting anything. So, one, change your rotary blade. It's like and change your needles in your machine too. You want to have the sharpest, best tools at all times. So I just use my ruler and my rotary blade. I just said the word needle, and since it's in my head, I'm going to go ahead and talk about it. When you're just beginning, whatever your regular old needle is, to use that. Like the 80-12 is just kind of universal and standard. That's what I have in my machine today. That's what I usually don't remember to change my needle from regular piecing, like cotton cuts last night, to working on legit kits like Sail Away again last night. I don't generally remember to switch out my needle. You can, and and they do make those recommendations as you start getting more into it. It is it's a 70, right? 70 it's going to hold so if you're using the smaller needle and the thinner thread, the two of them just work together really nicely. I do say this for me, in my personal opinion, I don't really notice the difference that much. I haven't put it under a microscope to look at it, but for my ease of just moving quickly and wanting to get stuff done, I always forget to change out the needle. I'm not always that great at remembering to change out the thread, and I just don't notice it that much. So I would definitely not recommend running out and getting all the things, unless you're in the camp with me where you like to have all the things. But as a beginner, as for the first couple of years, don't even stress yourself. Don't even stress yourself. Let's see. I'm gonna check some what folks are saying. Christine, favorite FPP papers from Patrick Place. Oh, that's cool. I haven't heard of that. Brenda hates changing her rotary blade. Yeah, it is. It's scary. It is. It's a work in progress. You can get those cut resistant gloves though, so there is that. But then I would have to remember where I put the gloves, and I have to put the gloves on, and then I would get my hands all sweaty and blah. So the chance of me putting on the gloves to change the rotary blade are pretty slim. Hi there, Melissa. I'm sorry you're not feeling well. But before I start saying, okay, let's cut the paper, if you haven't already, I was going to show how to do that. I do want to say there is another way of foundation paper piecing that I have not done, and I haven't tried it, so I can't really speak to it. There are plenty of people out there that do foundation paper piecing with freezer paper. It looks super cool. It looks like something I would like to do, and I will eventually try it. I just haven't tried it yet. I've used foundation paper piecing for that class I was talking about at the beginning, and it was really, I thought it was pretty cool how you just iron it on and it kind of like holds everything together. But it wasn't FPP that we were doing. It was like this applique thing. If doing that, because with the freezer paper, you're not actually sewing through the paper. You're sewing like next to it, so you can reuse pieces, which I think is economically sound, and ease of use is amazing, which is why I really like to try it. I haven't had the opportunity to do it yet. So if you've done that and it works for you and that's what you're into, awesome. I say go forth and conquer in the freezer paper world. I haven't tried it yet. So if you have any questions about that, my knowledge of that is very limited. I don't know how it all works together. So, but that is another thing that you might want to check out, and the YouTube resources aplenty for looking at that. Did you find it confusing, Christine? Yeah, see, and I'm in such a groove right now and so close to reaching goals that I've set for myself that I don't want to add another layer of something I have to try to remember or think through or anything. So I'm just steering away from it for right now. Hi, Elizabeth. Okay, so what I'm going to show next, and I'm not going to have the light board on for this, is how I cut the patterns out, so how I'm going to cut the block. If you have not seen an FPP pattern before, some of the pieces and bits and of everything, oh, you know what, I'm going to use the bigger one because you'll be able to see the numbers and such on the bigger one. So when you're beginning FPP, which way do I want to go? This way. Um, the numbers on the pieces are the layout of the fabric that you're going to put on there. So piece number 1 is your first piece, and I will show you how you lay that on the paper when we get to that point. But you start here, and then from 1 you'll be sewing 2 onto 1, trimming and getting ready to do 3 onto 2 and 1, 4 onto 1, 2, 3, all the way around. So for this square and a square, it's a circular rotation clockwise around your center square. Oftentimes, and the really good like pattern writers who take pity on their people that are doing their patterns, they will add this dashed, sometimes it's dashed. For legit kits, it's like a dark gray, but it is easily recognizable as outside of where your fabric is going to lay in the pretty space. This is the 1/4 inch seam around where you'll be sewing blocks onto blocks. So you'll be sewing them together in this solid line, sew line. This is for the seam allowance, the 1/4 inch seam allowance. So just like regular piecing of fabrics together to make traditional blocks, you have that 1/4 inch seam allowance to figure in every time you go. You will see some patterns and pattern writers that don't include this. And if they don't include the dashed line or a darker color for it is then on you to remember that you have to cut your fabrics to cover and account for that 1/4 inch seam allowance. That's a bugger. I don't like that, and I even now into FPPing and knowing that I need that 1/4 inch, I don't like having that added expectation on the user of the pattern to have to remember to do that. I feel like it's like unfair and tricky. Like, give your people the gentle reminder that they need to have that covered. So that's just a personal like pet peeve of mine. If you have patterns that don't have it and you're plenty comfortable and you just never forget, awesome, use them. And I'm sure there are great pattern writers out there that don't do it. I just ignore them because I don't want to add one more thing to have to remember. Melissa uses the freezer paper for applique. Yeah, that's the class we were using. It did that, and that was pretty freaking cool. Yeah, I'm right there with you, Ingrid. In addition to the 1/4 inch that they provide you in the pattern, I also always add a little bit. So I'll go to 3/4 when I'm cutting it out, or sometimes if I'm just using, if I'm not showing somebody else how to do it, I will just, come in and outside of the 1/4 inch, I'll just freehand it and be like, yeah, that's good. But I always add extra because I'm always adding a little extra security that I will be covering what I need to be successful in putting the pieces together. For today, where we're just doing this one block and we're not necessarily adding, unless you guys go ham and you want to do that and add, blocks of, you can make a table runner, you can make a wall hanging, just from these blocks printed off. And nothing is wrong with the traditional square and a square. So you can have some fun with fussy cutting, with some directional fabrics. Like if you had stripes, you could have the stripes all running, have this one going north and south, this one east and west, north and south. Like you could have some fun. Well, where was I going? I honestly don't even remember. I got excited about directional fabrics and stuff. So we'll just move right along. But yeah, for today, where we're just working on the one block and we're working on this together, you don't have to worry about matching all the seams up. It'll be maybe some binding. Maybe you don't even do binding. Maybe you just like bag it out, or you just put the backing on and flip it out, and just put a top stitch around it and call it a day. It's a mug rug. It's a trivet. It's whatever. Completely up to you for today. Afterwards, but so for this large one, I'm just gonna go ahead and freehand. Like it's so close to the edges, top and bottom. I'm not gonna cut any more off of that. We're just gonna go with that, and then I'm just gonna cut the other side off, leaving that a little extra bit. Woohoo! So there's the first one. On this really large one, I was going to do some fussy cutting with directional fabric to show you how to do that. That's the game plan for the large block. And we'll talk about fabrics as soon as we get these all cut out. Thanks, Melissa. You add the dashed pencil line to remind yourself. Yeah, I'm still big on the, come on, y'all. Give us give us the help to not have us have to remember to do it. Okay, so you'll see in the shrinking this down really small, it shrinks all the things. So this is no longer, this space between the solid line and the dashed line in shrinking this is no longer a 1/4 inch. So that's why I always recommend, and I've seen other people, and that's where I learned this from, is through other people saying, hey, always make sure. I always measure my 1/4 inch from the sew line that I will be sewing the two pieces together. That way I'm consistent between all of the pieces joining when I'm joining large pieces together or additional pieces together. So for this, because I shrunk it down, the distance is no longer a 1/4 inch. I would, when I'm trimming it, trim it to a 1/4 inch still, no matter what the seam allowance says once I've shrunk it. If you print it to the original size, like the 100%, and a lot of patterns will give you that 1 inch box, you'll just want to make sure you're 1 inch, and then quarter of an inch should be pretty standard across the board. Again, because I like to give myself some extra space, I'm going to do it at 3/4, and just line up the 3/4 line on the sew line, and I'll cut out the tinier one. So you can be fussy about it and use your ruler. You can use your paper scissors. I keep saying fabric scissors, but your paper scissors. You can just kind of freehand, up to you. There we go. And I'll cut the other one if we need it, but I'm just going to go with the 2 for right now. I'm going to check to see if there are any questions. Hi Donna, hi Nellie. Good morning and welcome. Pat says Amazon has newspaper print that can be used for FPP. Yes, that's where I got mine from. Amazon has everything. Yeah, we were talking about the rotary cutter cutting the papers being a controversial topic. But because I change my rotary blade so often, the paper is just not gonna, it's not really gonna damage anything. I just do it so often. Let's see. Okay, so patterns and directional and batik or solids, all that kind of stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about the fabrics now. So you can use, which if you're a beginner and this is the first time you're ever doing it, I would highly recommend solids. So it's the same on both sides. So where you're laying it on the pattern, it's not going to matter because both sides are the right side as far as it's concerned. So solids or batiks. I know some folks say that they can kind of tell a right side or a wrong side to a batik. The difference is so tiny. I don't even consider it or worry about it. To me, a batik is the same on both sides, and a perfect beginner choice for FPP, so you don't have to worry about right side, wrong side. A part of today, I'm going to show both fussy cutting and using directional at the same time. I'm going to cut something out of here that I like. Maybe the bag. I really like the bag. The medical bag, I think, is pretty cool. So the medical bag is directional, and I would have to fussy cut it out. So you can use directional fabrics. You can fussy cut to highlight in the center of the block square and a square, not block on a block, square and a square, is a fantastic spot to highlight really cool fabrics. And when we get to positioning fabric, I'll remind you of the special place that spot 1 holds in all FPP patterns. It sits in a spot that is different from the rest of the fabric that you'll be adding on. And then after that, it's, just fabrics. Some with some texture to it. This is, let's see, Cloud from Stitch Supply Company. So it's got some things on it. It's got some movement and all, but it's not directional. It doesn't matter which way you put it on. It won't mess up your pattern. Something like this, you may want to, it's not directional in it has to be like you want your deer to be standing up, straight. But you may want, in how you're cutting it, you may want for the square and a square, you may want your X's in the corners and them all to be, pointing in the same direction. So you want them pointing into the square like this. So you'll want to be thinking about that as you cut them out, so they're all pointing in the same direction. Not recommended for beginner. Not recommended at all to add that kind of brain power requirement for your first block. But it is something to start playing around with. and I would say if you want to start thinking about doing those kinds of things and learning how the fabrics end after you sew them on, a simple block like this, like the square and the square, is an awesome springboard to start thinking about how the fabrics play with each other as you're sewing them into larger projects. So, all right, let me just make sure that there's... Hi, Denise and Darlene. Excellent. Yeah, and see, and Pat's got. She uses the 3/8 edge on FPP. That is just like really like traditional piecing. This is just the start. This is just the basic beginning spots of beginning to work with the fabric and work with the paper and work with the different threads, and then watch as many videos as possible. I'll put up at the end a couple of recommendations, a few recommend. I've already talked about Juicy Juice. Yeah, I will. I really enjoy his really tiny pieces because I really like tiny pieces. But there's so many people out there on YouTube that you can learn the different tips and tricks. I learned from someone when it comes to sewing and having the fabric in your sewing machine. There was someone who said, "Oh, in order to have it not catch, I always roll my needle down so that the feed dogs drop, and then just slowly roll the needle back up so I can get the fabric under it." That's genius. I'd never heard anybody, of all the people I'd watched before, I'd never heard anybody give that suggestion to help for that specific thing. And I was constantly having, because you can't see the backside, I was constantly having the fabric fold underneath of itself and catch in weird ways, and was so frustrated, and I didn't think about doing that myself. And when I heard her say that, I was like, that's genius. So yeah, as you're looking through YouTube, learn all of the ways so that you can build the recipe that works for you. So the recipe for success in your FPP journey is going to be impacted and influenced by all of the different people that you watch and all of the different techniques that you try and decide you don't like, and you try and you decide you love. That's the toolkit that you're going to be building for your brand of FPP. And nobody can tell you that it's wrong. It's what works for you completely. So no matter what anybody says, if it works for you, then it is what works. So don't listen to anybody telling you any differently. Hi, Patrice. Oh, you're gonna fussy cut? Okay. Hi, Stephanie. All right. So we're gonna start. I'm gonna turn on the light box, and I'm going to start with, is that bright enough? Okay, which way is this going? See, I don't use this bugger often enough. Come on. There we go. All the way bright. All right, that works. I'm going to fussy cut in the first block of this guy. So this is the one I'm trying to fussy cut. So I'm going to put this underneath, because then I would just be cutting the paper if I had it on top, and that would not be good. And I'm going to line it up with my actually, I don't think I have it bright enough, but that's all right. We'll live with what we got. There we go. So it's lined on that side. Good enough. I don't know if it shows up. It's definitely brighter for me here. I feel like it's not very bright in the window. Oh, do I want the red or the blue? I think red. I feel like red is. I feel like red is better. Alright, is it on this? No, it's underneath this line. Alright. So, checking out all sides. Making sure I like where it's at. So, light box. The box is here. I know it's hard to see in the camera. Not as hard to see for me. Funky, funky. But good to go. Cut extra. Always cut extra. So my line is saying it's in between these two. I'm going to cut it at this top part right here. I'm going to freehand it though because I'm a wild woman. You do not have to freehand it. If you have a light box, well, you know what? Okay, so that's how you line it up on a light box. How you line it up not on a light box. How I would do it in the real world, because I never have my light box on. Is in a window, staring at the window, and then either with a friction pen, or I swear my friction pens walk off all the time. So frustrating. So now I can't draw it in there, but in the window, so you can use your natural light as the light box, and then I'm going to freestyle cut the little guy out. Boop. And I'm going past, like in the light, it was lining up with the thermometers. I'm going well past the thermometers so that I know I'll be good to go. Did I not cut across up here? Oh, I guess not. There we go. Obviously, it's time to change my rotary cutter. There we go. There. Oh, definitely need to change my rotary cutter. It's from cutting all the papers. Alright, so now is the time where we talked about how to hold your fabrics in place, and the specialness of the specialness of your first piece. So when you're sewing FPP, you're sewing on this side where the solid lines are. But when you're lining up your paper and when you're starting to place paper or fabrics rather, you're starting to put everything down, you're working on the backhand side. And your first piece of fabric needs to be facing up from where you're placing fabrics. But when you start sewing it, it will be wrong side up. This distinction confused the bejeebies out of me for so long because I just could not wrap my head around that we were working backwards, basically. You're working in the reverse when you're building the pieces of fabric together. But when you're placing the fabric, you're placing it on the back side of where you're sewing, and the first piece of fabric that you place is always facing up. Donna said check the plug, so I just replugged, like try the plug too. Alright, you know what, I'm gonna iron it though, because it's not straight, or not flat enough for me. Boom. I'm gonna iron it so it'll lay flat. can get the doctors in too. That would be fun. Yeah, let's try to center the doctors in with the bag. Okay, so there we go. See, I just did. It was not laying flat for me either. There was a point in time where I was like, oh, I'm going to be a starcher and an ironer, and I'm gonna all the things. Not so much anymore. But when you're trying to fussy cut and you want something to be specifically placed in a spot, you have to have it ironed so it lays flat and in a spot. Otherwise, it's not going to be where you want it to be. But I'm trying to, because the doctor is a little bit to the right and the bag is a little bit to the left, I'm trying to center it all. So with this, I would definitely recommend either pinning or using your sew line so that this is staying in place, and you don't have to use that much glue, so don't go crazy. Just a strip across there, a little strip across here, and one in the middle too, and that's it. That'll hold it nice. Woohoo! Okay, so again, we're working on the back side of the fabric, of the paper right now. Fabric 1 is facing you as you're working and placing that fabric in its spot. Let's turn this bad boy back off again. Now, I'm going to turn it over. And I'm going to use my cotton cut card. And we're going to get ready for the second fabric that we're going to be adding. Now, you can go around and fold all of this at one time, which is usually what I do, just so I don't have to do it every single time. I just fold, and oh, the dogs are trying to go in and out, so that was a loud door sound. And fold. Oops, move my card. So, got all the inside ones done, and I'll do the outside ones when we get to 6, 7, 8, and 9. But so, there we go. I have all of the ones that we'll be doing next done. And the fabric 1 facing the right direction. Now for fabric 2, this is the sew line that we'll be sewing fabric 2 to fabric 1. For fabric 2, what are we going to use? This is cool. I like this. I'm going to do this fabric for 2, 3, 4, and 5. So because I'm using this fabric, same fabric for 2, 3, 4, and 5, that means I need 4 pieces the same size. So I'm going to keep it folded together because I'm a cheater. I like to make it as easy as possible. So for this, I'm going to move this out of the way. You see that we want to cover 1/4 of an inch below the sew line so that you're sewing the fabric to the piece 1 fabric, and at least 1/4 of an inch above the sew line, and then you want to have 1/4 of an inch all the way around. So for me, for this, rather than trying to make it the exact size of that 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 an inch really to feel safe, but do it in a triangle, I'm just going to say, oh, there's a mosquito. I'm just going to lay it, and I'm just going to cut it as a big old rectangle and make sure all my sides are covered. Oh, I did not get it. I thought I got the mosquito. All the sides are covered. Oh, mosquito was trying to get me. And then go, all right, so that's, yeah, 3 inches from top to bottom on this little measuring board thing. So I'll do, where did I put my guy? I'll do 3.5 to be safe. Woohoo! 3.5. Oh, that mosquito is trying to get me. I keep hearing it in my ear. Boom. So that is the 4 pieces for around the center, all done. Just cut them apart. We're just separating the 4. 2, 3, 4. This is where the fun begins. So you've got a healthy size, and you've got your piece 1 sitting straight up to the sky to start looking at you when you're starting to place your fabrics. Then every other piece of fabric from here on out is going pretty side to pretty side in orientation to piece 1. So just like in regular piecing, it's pretty side to pretty side, oriented to piece 1, which is wrong side up when you're doing the sewing. So I line that up there. It's wrong side up opposed to the sew line, like that. This took me forever to figure out because it just didn't compute in my wee little brain. But once you get it, you get it, and then you're good to go. But I'm going to also show you how I make sure that everything is going to be covered. When I flip the piece down, this will tell you, oh, I almost had it. Oh, so close. I'm gonna get this mosquito if it's the last thing I do. So I have more than 1/4 of an inch. Oh, let me make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, cool. We're all talking about, so excited about the retreat coming up in just a few short weeks. I have more than 1/4 of an inch seam allowance over the sew line, which is perfect and good because we'll trim it down once we are happy with where the fabric lies. And then when I hold it up to my light source over here, I can tell that the fabric, I'm showing it like you can see, I can see that the fabric goes more than 1/4 of an inch past the ends of the triangle, and the fabric goes more than 1/4 of an inch past the 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And I can feel that on this side. I can feel that it's into the square, into the middle, which is plenty past the extra amount of seam allowance that I give to make sure that I'm good. So from here, we can move to the sewing machine, which means you have to flip the paper back up, so you're not going to see your fabric anymore, and you're going to sew your 2 pieces of fabric to your 1 piece of paper. This is where the rolling the feed dogs out of the way come in handy. So you roll it down, let the feed dogs drop, roll your needle back up again, and then you can slide it in. Now there are a couple of schools of thought at this point too, because in the square and a square, hold on a second, I'm just gonna put this down for a second. In the square in a square, you'll see the square corners right up here start and stop officially right at the sew line for piece 2, the sew line starts and stops where the sew lines for 9 and 6 are. There are tons of people and teachers that they start and stop precisely at that spot. If that makes you happy and you're comfortable with that and it works for you, continue to do that. I'm not telling you to change your style or change your way or anything like that. I found when I was doing that, I was not consistent enough to always catch that spot from where I sewed piece 2 on. I wasn't consistently catching that end spot when I was doing my sew line for 9. I wasn't catching it close enough to make me happy. So that when I was folding 9 back over, I could, it was small, but I'm anal. I could see the space between the fabric 9 and fabric 2 and 5 and 1. Like, I could see that area. It has to do partly with the fact that I'm an aggressive ironer. I am not apologizing for that. I'm an aggressive ironer. I like everything to be super flat. I use the acorn pressing piece, the pen. I use a clapper. I want complete flatness when I'm sewing these together. So for me, and what I learned from Verushka from Pride and Joy Quilting, from Juicy Juice, I think Kristen at Quiet Play, there's a couple of people. They sew a couple of stitches over. They start a couple stitches over and they end a couple stitches over. They're not back tacking because I'm using a 1.2 stitch length. It's such a small stitch length that back tacking isn't necessary, and it just adds more bulk. So it took me a little while to stop that. I was, because of all the traditional piecing I've been doing, I was very addicted to back and forth, like doing that, the back tacking at the beginning and the end. I've since stopped that because it does add bulk. It adds just additional time to what I'm trying to do that I don't want to add. But starting in and ending over, or starting outside of and ending outside of, for me works out better and gives me a crisper join at the end. And you'll see when I do that, I just will tear the paper away from those stitches a little bit, but the fabric stays there. And it works out, to me, it works out beautifully. I love it so much, very much. So I'm going to start just a couple of stitches outside of the line of where those 2 comes together with 1. I'm going to go ahead and sew this on. Cut the threads. And there we go. So 2 is on 1. Now I will flip this back over, and this is where the choice is yours. If you're a beginner and you don't have an add a quarter, just use your ruler that has a 1/4 inch measuring. Snakes in your dryer. What did I miss? Hey, Russ. My Nightbot reminder to have everybody stand up. Yay! Oh, the baby snake in the garage. Oh, taking it off the selvages is, if it's outside the seam allowance, I never worry about that. Even when I was a beginner, I just didn't, because I always felt like, oh, that gives me an extra buffer of fabric in the right spot. So I wouldn't like, I just don't find that anything to stress about. It's outside of what we're working on, but do what works for you. Okay, so now I'm going to trim down. I'll show it with add a quarter, and then you can just use your regular ruler too. Oh, and I'm going to move the light box because I do not like the feel of this. That might be what it is the light box is cutting mat is blah. So here, I'm going to move the light box out of the way. See, it's a fun tool, but I don't ever really use it. So I would definitely not say I'm an expert at using it. The first time I used it, I had the paper on top of the cutting board. That's how I know you don't do that. Alright, so I used the add a quarter. You can use just your ruler and line it up right on the 1/4 inch, right at the fold of your sew line, and trim it down. Totally up to you, whatever's going to be easier. See, I have so much stuff. I have the pins, I have the glue stick on my table. My eyes are starting to itch. There's too much stuff in my way. And then, okay, so you know what? I'm gonna try to do this too. I'm gonna try to bring my pressing mat up here so we can see how to do this as well. Alrighty. If it lets me bring it up somewhat. So I don't burn myself. Let's move this stuff out of the way. I really need to save up for that third camera so we can have the overhead shot of ironing as well, pressing as well. Pressing. I iron the bejeebies out of things. You can see my where my iron gets so warm, I'm toasting my wool mat. Okay, so there we go. Woohoo! Overhead shot of pressing. So I always do press to set the seam because I'm a lunatic, and I've learned that over time that it actually does kind of matter to nestle in the thread into the fabrics. Yeah, I'm not okay with snakes in a dryer. In your garage, fine with. In the house, in my appliances, not okay with. Then I will use the Acorn Precision Piecing pen. Traditional piecing, I will do it on this side. With this heavier paper, I'm okay doing it on this side too. When I'm using the newsprint or like the legit kit papers, I always do it on the like 3. So I'll bring this over, iron it a little bit, and then do the Acorn pen. So it's 3 layers of fabric, so it doesn't mess up the paper. But here on this thicker paper, it's not gonna have a problem. The ink isn't gonna run. The paper isn't gonna get wonky. So no worries. There we go. Iron that back. If you are wrong side. If you are a clapperer, pop your clapper on that bad boy. And then you'll be able to see over here. I'm going to go ahead and fold 9 back. You've got plenty to have the 1/4 inch seam for 9 and for 6. Woohoo! but we aren't at those pieces yet, but you want to check that you've got all your bases covered. You can hold it up to the light to also make sure you've got on either side. Good to go. Okay, now I need to rearrange again to get the iron out of the way. Maybe hold on a second. I wonder if I can do this. Keep that up there, and then I'll be able to just flip back and forth. Yeah, I think that'll work. All right, let's really try not to burn myself. I'm going to continue sewing on this one to complete the piece. I do want to show you on the smaller one how using a batik or a solid helps with this center block. So let's use this pretty art gallery fabric solid. Because there is no right or wrong side, this is why I always recommend a solid for beginner FPP project when you're just trying to figure it out. Like with the legit kits, with how intricate they are, doing them with non-directional, fussy cutting, the Kona cotton solids or any other solid or batiks. Gosh, people have been using batiks for a lot of the stuff. Just gorgeous. It makes it a lot easier because you're already, your brain's already straining so much to get those pieces done. But for the beginner ones, it also is very helpful because when you're placing it on here, all you have to worry about is your 1/4 inch seam all the way around. Then, as you're adding pieces on, all you have to do is worry about the 1/4 inch seam in every location that your triangles for the square and the square, where all of that's going to lay. But you don't have to worry about how the fabric is, front to back, right side, wrong side, all of that stuff. You don't ever have to worry about it because there's no right or wrong side. So when you get to, put your second piece on, whatever you lay down to make sure you have your 1/4 inch seam allowance to sew, whichever way you put it on is the right way because there's no right or wrong side. So that's why solids are fun and easy in FPPing. Always a good place to start. Yeah, that iron gets way hot. It was I was at Ingrid's and saw her little Iliso and how hot it got, and I was like, I must have that. And it does. It's hot and it gets toasty. Okay, so now we're gonna set up for side 3. So so you see I stitched, let me see if I can show you a little bit better. I'm not sure if it's gonna show up in the camera, but I stitched 3 little boop, boop, boop over on that side. All I'm gonna do is pull gently the paper, 1, 2, 3, just those stitches, so that I can, oops, nope, I'm doing section 3, not 6, so I can fold the paper back. And I am going to trim this up because it is even more than just a 1/2 inch past, but I will do it to 1/2 inch so that we get comfy. We know that we're going to have enough fabric to sew along. Oh yeah, it was the light boxes cutting that my rotary cutter did not like. So there we go. Now we're ready to do the 3rd piece. We have the fabrics lined up, and we'll do 3rd piece. So now the sew lines are facing me as I'm setting up each next piece. So you want the right side of every fabric when you're looking at it from the sew lines to be facing me. So again, it's pretty side to pretty side. the new fabric that we'll be sewing on, the right side will be facing me, looking at it this way. And because we cut all 4 pieces the same size, we know we have the right coverage. We just want to make sure that we have it evenly spread, so that we're maintaining that right coverage. Because if we place the fabric incorrectly, we'll still sew it incorrectly, even if we cut all 4 pieces the same size. We have to place it right, otherwise it's not going to land right. But that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and flip the paper over. I'm going to roll the feed dogs down a little bit. I'm going to gently slide the paper in. I'm going to place the needle into the paper a couple of stitch lengths into, for this side it's that corner 6. And if anybody has any questions, or if I'm going too fast, because I'm a fast talker, and then this is kind of like muscle memory, so it just kind of like takes over. If you guys have any questions as you're going along, please let me know. I'm also probably talking really fast because I'm insanely nervous to be teaching something, so focused in teaching something, and I want to make sure that I'm telling you guys in ways that you understand. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Hi, Jean. I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. We are working up our beginner FPP patterns. So I am again starting just a couple of stitches into area 6 to sew piece 3 onto piece 1. Piece 1 and 2. I'm going to go a couple of stitches over into 7 to ensure that we've got a crisp join, and then I'm excited to get to show you what that looks like. So now I will trim it down to 1/4 inch, and I'll bring the iron back up to show you. There we go. Come on, little iron. And I'm gonna need you. There we go. All right, so again, I will set my seam. Let it cool down just a wee bit. Oh, Donna, good question. So I sew all of my FPP at a 1.2. That's on the Juki 2000. The Singer that I also use, it doesn't do it in even numbers, so it's a 1.3 stitch length, small, very small stitch length. But I sew traditional piecing at a small stitch length too, at a 1.8. So the small stitch lengths are kind of my happy spot. But I like the small stitch length for FPP because it makes tearing the paper away at the end really, really easy. It makes it much easier to deal with at the end. Hey, Kathy? Nope, not Kathy. Sorry, Kelly. Kelly Cruises Crafts and Quilts. Breakfast done. Good morning. Oh, it's 9 o'clock. All right. So it is cooled down. I'll go ahead and hit it with the Magic Juice, which is the Acorn Easy Press pen. Bring it over. And iron, press, iron. Like, yeah, I'm an ironer. I am what I am, folks. There we go. And I will pop the clapper on, and then let this cool just for a second, and then I'll show you where fabric 2 and 3 came together. It's so nice and clean. It makes me so happy because of the little overstitch that we've done. Let me see if I can bring it up high enough. There is no gap between where I may have stopped too early on piece 2 and maybe ended too early with piece 3 if I had only sewn right to that section. And that's where I was having problems with only doing right to the points right there. But because I've gone over, it is a nice clean join right there. And that makes me a happy camper. So, we'll go ahead and move this back now. Hold the iron so it doesn't fall onto my lap, because how horrifying would that be on live camera? It'd be so bad. That would be my luck, though. Let's see. My feed dogs are either engaged or covered with a darning plate. Is that a problem? So, how do I, them covered with a darning plate is not gonna, because you want it to move the fabric through. I'm not disengaging them to be ready for like free motion quilting. I'm just rolling the needle so that the feed dogs are just at the surface, so they're not catching the fabric and like crinkling up the piece that you're trying to sew on, or making it slip in a weird way. Some machines, I have less issue with that here on this Juki than I do on the Singer. So like my feed dogs on the Singer, I guess, are just a little bit higher or pointier or something. They're in the way a little bit more. So I always have to roll the feed dogs down just a little bit so I can get the fabric to lay nicely. It's less of a problem on the Juki. But the darning plate where it blocks the feed dogs, I have never used a darning plate, so I'm making assumptions here if I'm wrong. But if the darning plate covers them all together, I don't know that you get the same pull through the machine like you'd need, if that makes sense. Oh yeah, these guys. This is Magic Juice, and if you need a pusher, if you need a supplier of your Magic Juice, Quilting with Stephanie Stitches, she has it in her shop. I actually just ordered a couple because the cats have run away with one of them, and then I think I might have left my when I was looking for to replace the one that the cats ran away with, the one that's in my go bag for retreats. It wasn't in there, so I think I might have left it in Millersburg. But yeah, Linda, that the feed dog's catching it, and then because I sew with such a small stitch length of 1.2, having to rip that out, it's just an added frustration and adds more time and blah. So when I learned that, just roll the needle forward just a bit to lower the feed dogs, and give yourself a nice smooth landing area, that was game changer. I love it so much. Yep, that's how I do. I roll it forward so that the feed dogs go down. You do have to roll it backwards a little click click to bring your needle up high enough to get the fabric back under it, but it has worked wonders. I would definitely check on both your singer and your brother if doing the hand rolling the needle forward, like down, so you're rolling it forward towards you to bring the needle down manually, just enough for the feed dogs to disappear, and then roll the needle back up, just a couple of little tiny clicks, so that you can get your paper back under there. I think you'll be good to go. But test it out. Let me see. Oh, okay, you got it. Okay, good. Yeah, okay, good. Hi, Janice. Oh yeah, the cardstock trick. That's cool too. Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's a Canadian product. You definitely, Kelly's got the N on the magic juice. All right, so let's see. We got 1 and 2. Let's go ahead and add 3. Let me remove this thread. Time for piece number 4. So we will again pull this section. I'm a couple of over, so I'll just very carefully roll the paper back like that and fold it back. Go ahead and cut a 1/2 inch to make sure we have definitely enough fabric to catch to add our next piece to the block. Boom. That is one of the hardest things for me to learn and remember, is that I would get lost in this piece is, only this big. Well, I don't have to cut the fabric that big. But I think that's why the little pieces scared me at first, is because, oh, it's so tiny. How am I ever going to get the fabric to work in that tiny space? The fabric can be a healthy size piece of fabric. As you're adding pieces to it, you're then manipulating that fabric to turn into the small tiny piece you need it to be. You don't have to start it off that small. And I would get myself into trouble trying to cut so precisely that I gave myself no wiggle room for if I, wavered a wee bit in my sewing, or if I laid it just a little bit too heavy in one direction than the other. I was cutting the fabrics so small, I was not giving myself any area for grace. You don't have to do that. Don't be intimidated by the end size of the pattern section. Don't be intimidated by that. Don't even really pay that much attention to it. Just be sure that you're cutting a piece of fabric that will healthily cover that. And if it's still small, really small, even if you have a healthy coverage, cut it even bigger. It's not, you're not wasting that much fabric when you do that, and you are certainly saving time and your mental health when you're not so stressed out about those tiny little pieces and having to cut the fabric tiny to match, because you'll see as I'm doing this, I'm trimming as I go. I'm forming the fabric into the shape I need it to be at the end when we're done and we're ready to add a new block or bind it, all that kind of stuff. So you're transforming the fabric as you work. You don't have to start off with the fabric in the shape that it will end in. And that was, once I Once that clicked in my head, I was much more confident and much more relaxed working with really tiny pieces like you'll see in the legit kits. So, like, don't stress too much. To everybody. Oh, as folks are coming in, I think I've got Nightbot pretty well figured. If you do !commands, you'll get a list of all the commands that you can use when you're on my channel. If you do !Stephanie, you'll be able to go and see her YouTube page, ! Russ was on here. Sean, I have many more friends with YouTube channels now, so I'm gonna have to expand my list. But the commands are in there. Like if you do ! Socials, you can get links to. Oh no, I'm so sorry. Like my Instagram and Facebook. So there's some fun Nightbot things that I've been working on. But okay, let's get to the next piece, because I do want to make sure we finish this in time so that you guys can see. How's everybody's? If you're sewing along, how are your block in a blocks going? Do you have any questions? Have you run into any issues? Or have you now mastered this technique and you are ready to take over the world? Or, also valid, have you decided that maybe FPP isn't for you? You're allowed to not like a particular technique. I think last night with Stephanie we were talking about it's like with food with the kids. They were allowed to not like a food, but I wanted them to at least try everything one time. That's how I feel about all this too. Like I want to try every technique I can at least one time. And then what I don't like, but I can say I tried it, so at least I have, like, my opinion is based on personal experience. That being said, there are so many techniques, I don't know that I'll ever get through them all. But I think when we start saying no before we've tried it, we're limiting our experience and we're limiting our ability to have some fun. I'm the king of the world! Oh, the red, white, and blue theme. I love that. Aligning each piece when not using rectangles. Yeah, that's another piece that I learned too. Was just because the end has to be a triangle or the end has to be... Come on, bud. The end has to be a rhombus or whatever. The piece I start with can be a very, very simple shape. A square, a rectangle, and then I can work everything down into the finished piece shape that it needs to be. Are you happy with the lovin's? Now will you get? Huh? Now will you get? No, don't go that side. That side has the iron. Go this side. There you go. That was Harmonica. He was saying hi to everybody. And he's got cat hair. He's left his glitter all over the place. Oh, he's coming back. He is so smart. No, you stay over there. Oh. Cat. Where do you think? No! Oh my lord. Hi. Can you sleep back here? Yeah. Can you not show your booty to the world? There you go. Sleep. Sleep right there. Yep. Right there. Lay down. need to finish this block, you freak. Lay down. Between the dogs and the cats and the 20-year-olds, it is never boring around here. All right, well, just don't get your paw where you're gonna get it cut. Oh my word. Oh my. All right. Okay, so this one I am gonna iron just off to the side so that I'm moving faster, because I do want to get the piece finished, and I'm gonna start ignoring the cats as best I can. I think a harmonica is bound and determined to knock over a camera or two. All right, let's get it rolling. Hi, sir. Yeah. I knew you were going to think I cleared that spot off just for you. Indeed, sir. Yes, kitty bomb. So you trim to a 1/2 inch, sew the next piece, then trim to a 1/4. So doing so what I do now, 2 years in, is completely different. I really just rough cut with scissors and sew the other piece on and then trim it and make it pretty. So like the pieces like could be like, you know, extra however it fit into the rest of the fabric that I had. There will be weird pieces all over the place. But to begin with, yeah, cut it to a half an inch so that you are safe and comfortable and you feel confident about what you're sewing, and then trim it, and then that's when you start making it bend to your will and what it needs to look like in the end. So yeah, I definitely say the 1/2 inch sew, trim down. Thanks, Pat. Talk to you soon. Yeah, today it's harmonica. It's not Glock. Glock has been the camera diva lately, but today harmonica's up here, bound and determined to not let me finish. So there's 1, 2, and 3 on. Next is going to be, or 1, 2, 3, and 4 on. Next we're going to be sewing on piece 5. Harmonica, I really am going to need you to move, my friend. Yeah, I'm going to need you to scooch. I need this spot to cut. I guess I don't need it right now. This is how it goes. I have serious conversations about the things I need, and then I allow them to do whatever they want. Because I can just figure it out. Add that piece on. For folks that are sewing along, what fabric choices did you make? Did you start with just solids, nice and easy, no stress, or batiks? So nice and easy, but some added jazz to the fabric with batiks. Ingrid is for sure on a Americana kick, because we've been taking some classes and doing some fun stuff where Stephanie's door hanging and the first virtual retreat with Yvette. Oh, excellent, Patty. Thank you. Yeah, generous. Hi, Lucy. You're using scrap triangles. That's very cool. Batiks. I love it, Priscilla. I love batiks. Alright. Since I'm getting no assistance, just judging looks from Harmonica over here, I'm going to do what in my world is kind of standard, where I just trim it with scissors, and I'm not that worried about it. But again, it's because I've been doing it for a while, and I just kind of do what needs to be done. So when there are kitties afoot, sometimes cutting with scissors is what needs to be done. There we go. I don't recommend it, especially if you're doing it your first ones, because like there is some loosey-goosiness to what I just cut. At some point here, Harmonica will just give up because I'm not petting him, and he'll move along, or he'll decide not to just because I need him to, so he won't. Alright, so what I'm going to do is, while I'm ironing this one back, I'm going to go ahead and pop up on the screen. I talked about Juicy Juice. I did talk about the Yvette Renee, or Yvette Renee Creations Piecing It Real is the FPP group that Yvette runs. Oh, I'm so glad it's been helpful. Yay! Yeah, he is a pretty perfect cat too. I wish you could see his little face. His eyes are closed. He's very excited. Oh, I just ruined it. I did pet him, so now he's gonna be here for life. Oh, but I'm gonna go ahead and share a picture of some folks that I've learned a lot from, and want to share that information with you. So I'm gonna pull those names up. So I just talk about the Yvette Renee. That's who I first started learning FPP from, where it started to make sense for me. I'd watched some videos before, and I'd looked at some patterns before, and I just didn't understand what was happening. Pride and Joy Quilting. If you haven't heard of Varushka and her patterns, if you've seen them, you might have seen them maybe. Like her most recent one was the girl with the pearl earring is her most recent pattern. She's done an awesome lion, incredible. She did one in South Dakota, the Dignity, which I can remember, the woman standing with the Lone Star quilt in the metal statue made of that. She created a quilt top of that and then donated it to them, and she made no money off it. She didn't make any patterns of it. She did it for them. That was incredible. Quiet Play is amazing. She does some really intricate pieces. She just started another sew-along, a monthly sew-along, it's really cute. This new one is, the last one was Sea Life based. This one is Maker based. So there's rotary cutters and seam rippers and sewing machines. Super cute. So check out Quiet Play. Pen and Paper Patterns. I've gotten some awesome letters from, alphabets from. They have other things, but I've really enjoyed their letters. Liza Taylor is really cool. Cotton and Bourbon, if you want to do FPP and curves, mind-blowing work on her. There's, I'm gonna forget them, but Ingrid and I actually did a class with her on her latest radial, I believe. Amazing stuff. So really awesome people to take a look at and to learn some additional hints and tips and tricks in the world of FPP. So you want to check those folks out to continue your journey. Those are people that I've learned a lot from. I do really hope that I've helped and that harmonica is helping. I hope that I've helped you today learn maybe some just ideas on ways to do it a little bit differently, ways that you've heard before, and that might make it click for you. Where do I put my card? I don't know. So we'll use my Anacorder. That I have had an absolute blast doing this. I was telling Ingrid before it started that the nerves kicked in and I was very nervous, but I enjoy my Sundays with you all so very, very much, and sharing the insanity that is my household and the cats. So silly. Oh, let's do this one. Then you can see I'm getting ready for adding the next triangles to it, and then I will also cut just big rectangles to trim down. And then these, if you are a scrap saver, these will work in future projects for smaller pieces. So I would absolutely recommend holding on to these pieces. They are a good healthy size for smaller sections and other blocks that you might do. So I'm going to go around and go ahead and trim to the 1/2 inch, just all the way around, so I can get these last pieces added and we can see a finished block. Let me look at comments. Say hey to Ingrid. Oh, you're so welcome. I love all those folks. Oh, the triangle. Love it. So, see, even though I'm cutting those pieces extra healthy, I don't consider these wasted because they'll fit into future FPP projects. It'll all come back around. Remember to close your rotary blade. No accidents on live YouTubes. You can see that's where the corners came, and I just pushed it down a little bit to tear it back. And there we go. All right. Now we are ready for the next pieces. But look at that. Look how pretty. Some block them square and square blocks are just this, and you could stop right there and you would have your on point, because I was using directional fabric. If I wasn't using directional fabric, you could use it this way. And it wouldn't have to be on point. For mine, I'm going to add the next pieces, but the Doctor's In is pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. We've got a little thermometer. The Doctor is In and the bag. I'm happy with that. Let's see. What fun color are we going to add to the end? I'm going to do green. Because why not? Why not? So again, we need 4 of these, but these are going to be bigger. So I think I'm going to do them this way. Iron this down a wee bit. I don't know if you guys could hear it, but my 100-pound pup's tummy is making all kinds of noises. Alright. So we are over there. We are over here. And we are over here. And this is where I want to cut it. So when I say that I am not precise when I'm getting ready for the next pieces, I really mean I'm not precise, but I make sure that in that non-precision, I'm leaving a good amount of room. But like, I'm not measuring the triangle, I'm just measuring around the area that the triangle will end up, and cutting to satisfy that section. So yeah, that is plenty big. Now I will separate the pieces. And we'll get to going. We got these pieces added. So I've already cut it down to the 1/2 inch. I will add this on. And I wonder if you guys can tell. No, I don't think so. But we are absolutely covering this whole, because look, it's going down to almost the other side. So we are well covered on that triangle. Oh yeah, I've done the same. I had started to do the exploding heart. Is that what it's called? Where it's all half square triangles and quarter square triangles. And I cut those and made those like 6 months into being a quilter. And I look at that project every once in a while and I'm like, what was I thinking? What was I doing? Why did none of these match? Why did none of them? So it's a lot of fabric that I use, but I'm at that point too, where I think I'm just going to scrap it and I'm gonna redo it with the knowledge I've gained now. What I might do though is put those pieces together and then use it as practice for free motion quilting, so I'll still be able to utilize them. I won't be wasting all of it. It's just it won't become the exploding heart that I thought they were going to do, because I was not happy. All right, let's trim it down to the 1/4 inch. scissors back so they're out of the way. Oh, good, MJ. I'm so happy to hear that. Were you waiting for green, Ingrid? Yeah, green always makes an appearance. Oh, I think my dog just got the mosquito. I think she just ate it. The circle of life. Alright. So there we go. There's the first green section. So I for sure have coverage in my desire to get this block done. It will be a little bit over probably on time, but we'll be close. I definitely have enough fabric coverage. And fun thing with the square and the square, I started with 9 because I legit thought that was 6 looking at it this way. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in this. It doesn't matter that I started with 9 and I will be working my way 9, 8, 7, 6 because it's just for this, how they all lay together is the same. It's the same throughout the thing, so it's not gonna mess anything up that I did that I read it as a 6 upside down, cause I'm a goofball. What I will do is go ahead though and trim this excess out of the way, because that's just gonna flop around too much for my liking and stress me out. So I will get rid of that. And then add the next piece. Now, when we're on this bit where we're at the outside seam allowance, you can go to town sewing outside the lines and through the seam allowance on this at this point, because it's the seam allowance. You're not messing anything up. So you don't have to be quite as precise at this point. But where you are meeting the sections where you've sewn a stitch or two over, you want to pay attention to that, because sometimes if your needle hits that thread and the join there just right, it'll move the paper, and you won't be sewing straight anymore. So you just want to kind of be mindful of where that meets. Harmonica, you're on my fabric. Goofball. Alright. I'm hustling now, folks. Never fails. I talk so much. Okay. And there. We'll do a little bit of trim action. Lauren, would you let Sadie out, please? Oh. There we go. Okay, so that's the 2 sides. Woohoo! We're really close. I appreciate you guys hanging out. 2 hours goes so fast. I'm so glad today's a good day. Okay. Now with this piece, pull back the paper gently, just so you don't pop any stitches. With the tiny stitch length of the 1.2, it is less likely that you'll pop stitches pulling it back, but you just want to be careful, and you don't want to stretch your fabric out. You just want to be gentle and give it some love. There we go. Oh, y'all, I'm skipping the trimming it to a 1/4 inch. I'm just getting it done. Certainly not going to hurt anything at a 1/2 inch. Won't hurt a thing. Go see. Go lay down. You cuckoo head. Go lay down. Right. And that. Woohoo! Almost there, folks. Almost there. Last piece. Go. Excellent. Last seam. All right. Now, depending on the size that you printed it at, you have yourself a very nice pot holder, a trivet, a mug rug. You could print out several of these blocks in the same size that you printed out your first, and do a table topper or a table runner. You've got many choices. So I will trim this to the 1/4 inch so that we can see the final realized top. There's that. I do hope that you all will check out some of the names that I talked about and I showed earlier. I will list them in the show notes in the description box. Several of them have YouTubes. A lot of them are on Instagram. Mosquito is back. I don't do too much Facebook, so if they have Facebooks, I don't know that I would know, but you can always check it out to see if you're a Facebooker and not an Instagrammer. But I really hope that you check them out, and look for others. There's always new people that are learning and teaching how to do FPP, how to do applique, how to do all the things. So I hope that you're reaching out and looking for new folks to learn all the new things from, because hearing all of that information really, like I said at the beginning, helps you devise your own toolkit. So here it is finished. Yay. I actually really like it. I was just grabbing fabrics. Had no rhyme or reason for the colors that I was grabbing, but I really like the purple and green. That's always a good choice. And I like the being able to have that as the focal point in the middle. All right. What I'm gonna do is I will show you how I would tear, because I'm not sewing additional pieces together. If I was sewing additional blocks together, I would keep these on and have this sew line, and then remove the paper in between the seams, and only remove all the paper once I was done, complete, so that it would hold structure to keep it together as I'm building out. But for this is the finished block. So because I sew at that tinier stitch length, tearing off the paper, a lot easier. If you have tweezers are helpful at this point, to get in the, especially in the cross areas of where stitches might overlap. The tweezers are big time helpful there. But you just tear it out. You can use the tweezers to help you if the paper isn't pulling up easy enough. Kind of work the tweezers in between the paper and the fabric, and it'll help you pull. But look at this. That tiny stitch length absolutely helps. You can tell the difference between what has the paper on it and what doesn't. The stability and the strength of the paper holding it in place. That is very helpful while you're building out your project, to keep the inner papers in there as long as possible. Definitely want to remove it from the seam allowances so you're not adding bulk, but the structure helps until you're finished with your project. So there we go. That was ripping all those papers out. Look how nice and clean it is. It's so pretty. And there. I would go ahead and do another press to help flatten the sections where multiple fabrics meet. It's got a little bulk to it. Flatten that down a little bit more. But that is it, folks. Oh my gosh, I appreciate you all being here for a couple minutes over one so that we can finish up. I hope that you will all think about, thank you guys, yay! Think about coming back to my channel on Tuesday night. Tuesday is our with Quilting with Stephanie Stitches. Here live from 6 p.m. Eastern to 8 p.m. We'll be sewing up our 2-color quilt challenge blocks, the winners for month 3. So we'll be sewing those up together with over 200 folks. So it's a live YouTube so if you wanted to come and join us, if you haven't heard anything about it, come hang out. There's never too late to join in on the fun. That we have free patterns that we'll send you if you want to sign up. There's a Google form that I'll also link in here. But that's next up Tuesday night, so I'm really looking forward to that. It's a lot of fun. You will be inspired, so inspired by everybody's fabric choices, and combinations I would not have thought of that I am now in love with, and I want to make a quilt in these combinations. So exciting, so much fun. So I hope you'll think about joining us Tuesday night. Yeah. Oh, okay, yep, I appreciate if you're gonna rewatch. The precision, Dara, is definitely the part of this that makes, like, no missed points. No missing points. So pretty. It makes me so happy. But yeah, thank you all so much. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. Have a very fantastic week. I'll see you Tuesday. Thursday morning will be my podcast. Will be out on YouTube. And then who knows what craziness we'll get into this weekend. But we'll be back next Sunday for Sunday brunch again. And we'll see what I've got planned for that one. Nothing in my head right now, so we'll see. All right, everybody. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate you being here. I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks, everybody.